Hey guys, this is Nick. Welcome to another episode of Strange Spotting. Today we're going to take a look at a clip that has fascinated me for a long time, the Poland's Riese tunnel creature. Any clip depicting some kind of cryptid intrigues me, but the added flavor with this one is that we don't know what we're looking at. With Sasquatch and Dogman and Rake clips, we have some kind of concept to use as reference. We know that Bigfoot, for instance, according to the aggregate information available through folklore and more recent reports, is very tall, very broad and muscular, bipedal, its body is covered with hair, and its appearance, behavior and body mechanics imply it is genetically close to both humans and apes. Whoever filmed this short video, whether it's real or a hoax, didn't even attempt to categorize the humanoid on display, which may potentially give us some wiggle room for speculation. So let's get started. I really hope you will enjoy this video as much or even more than I did making it. As usual, I'm going to play the full unedited clip first.
Nie ma nic. Pusto, nikogo. Widzieliście to? No. Mam.
I did quite a bit of digging for this clip, but I was not able to determine its origin and original publisher. Apparently, it was first published on 4chan several years ago and downloaded by a user to share on YouTube. The only related information attached to it is that the authors were exploring some tunnels in Poland when they came across the alleged creature. These tunnels belong to the Riese project, a complex of underground structures built by the Nazis between 1943 and 1945 in the occupied territories of Lower Silesia, under a range of mountains called Owl Mountains and connected to Chia's Castle. Sorry for the bad pronunciation. The complex was never finished and its purpose remains unknown due to the fact that no documentation was ever found. I have no way of verifying the reliability of this information, but one of the two explorers speaks first in a language that sounds like Polish to me. Maybe someone watching this video can confirm it. And later says, "Did you see it?" I think we can infer that the two individuals were filming for an urban exploration show of some kind, probably for a YouTube channel, and used their native language instinctively because of the excitement and surprise of what just happened, and moved back to English when they remembered they were filming for an international audience. The fact that we don't know who posted this clip first, and neither what kind of commentary was attached to it originally, makes any attempt to evaluate the nature of this footage problematic at this stage of the analysis. From what I could gather, the prevalent opinion in the comment threads is that the fact that the two authors start running towards the creature is a clear indication of this being a staged event, or in other words, a hoax. It's definitely not an element supporting the legitimacy of this video, but I do not consider it a clear sign of forgery either. It's true that when confronted with something with a menacing appearance, the well-known psychological reaction is what's commonly referred to as fight or flight, although the more scientifically accurate version includes the freeze option. But I think this particular situation does not apply, because the two explorers didn't feel threatened, for two reasons. The first one is that although the poor lighting conditions caused the camera sensor to capture very little details, the human eye and brain are a lot better at instinctively gauging dimensions than what the public opinion gives it credit for. When I say gauging, I don't mean exact measurements. Our brains aren't programmed with the concepts of feet or meters, but they are programmed by millions of years of evolution with the concepts of bigger than me equals dangerous and smaller than me equals not dangerous. Even without making any estimates, despite the poor footage quality, our naked eye can tell that the subject is smaller than an adult human being. The second reason why the freeze, fight or flight reaction doesn't apply to our human explorers here, it's clearly the subject who has that psychological reaction because it runs away immediately. It's a well-known fact that in most predators, the sight of another animal running away activates the predation instinct and compels them to give chase. Although omnivores, before developing a prefrontal cortex, the nature of humans was clearly that of predators, gregarious predators, but predators nonetheless. And it's not too far-fetched to assume that deep in our DNA there is an instinct to give chase to something smaller than us and running away from us. For these reasons, I still haven't observed any element corroborating one hypothesis over another, and I'm going to assign an equal breakdown to 4 hypotheses: hoax, prank, misidentification, and undiscovered creature. Something I repeat in almost every video analysis I make is that it's a commonplace practice for hoaxers to purposely create bad quality footage, either through camera settings or in post-production through computer software. This allows to pollute the images and hide most details in order to make it very difficult for viewers to determine whether it's real or not. I also always repeat that bad quality footage is not by itself enough to declare something a hoax, but given the basic capabilities of most cameras, it should be regarded at all times as a bit of a red flag. That's not the case with the clip we're analyzing. I know the subject is very hard to make out, but that's a result of very poor lighting conditions and what appear to be average flashlights. Whenever the artificial light illuminates something close, like the entrance of the side tunnel, the image is very clear and detailed, enough to assert, in my opinion, that this is a real cave and not a fake one. I know that it's an extravagant proposition to think that people might use fake tunnels to create a hoax, but I must consider all possibilities. I feel confident enough in ruling out this particular possibility, given the level of detail and realistic look of the stone in this part of the video. I will begin with estimating the subject's height. Unfortunately, this is predicated upon one single element, which may become object of contention in the comments. By looking at the whole clip, would you say the authors are standing up straight or that they are slightly crouched? I am leaning towards the second option because of the awkward sounding way they run and also by the shadow projected by the guy on the right. I'm fairly confident about this, but cannot confirm it with absolute certainty though. So I will make this assumption, but assign a limited importance to these estimates. I'll assume an average height at the middle point of the tunnel of 6 feet. I've drawn 3 bars with different colors. The blue one represents the cave height at the point where the subject is located and is exactly 92 pixels. The red bar corresponds to the subject's height in this slightly crouched position and is 48 pixels long. I think the crouched position is probably equivalent to 3/4 of the subject's full height. Therefore, the yellow bar is 64 pixels. All we have to do is divide 64 by 92, which equals to 0.696, and multiply the assumed cave ceiling height by this number. The estimated height of the subject results to be 4.17 feet, or 1.27 meters. Allow me to repeat that I don't expect everyone to be on board with this estimate because it's based on the assumption that the authors are not standing up at full height, but slightly crouched. Now let's take a closer look at the subject. I have isolated, extracted and cropped 3 different photograms. Then I applied a sharpening filter and increased the exposure and luminosity on each. In the first one, we see the subject running in a slightly hunkered position towards the side tunnel's entrance. In the second one, we see it starting to get down on all fours, and in the third one,
where I added a visual representation of the small tunnel's entrance. We see it already in a crawling position. The level of detail and general quality of the images are very low, so I feel there's too much room for error in trying to extrapolate body ratios, but it's possible to draw an outline of the subject's shape in both images. There are three details that I consider irrefutable here. The first one is that the subject's body is covered with hair, or fur. The second one is that the hair's color is a very light one, either light gray or white. This is visible with the naked eye in the original clip, and even more so in the enhanced crops. The third one is that the subject has the shape and movement of a bipedal anthropoid. This is visible also from the facial features. Here are the eye sockets and the nose. At this point, by combining the two observations that this is a real underground cave system and that the subject is clearly a humanoid, we can rule out the misidentification hypothesis, since there's no animal species known to science with these physical features dwelling in an underground habitat. The odds for the prank hypothesis are also extremely diminished by these findings, given how unrealistic it is for someone of small stature to don a white monkey suit and hide in an underground cave system to play a trick on unsuspecting explorers. As of now, due to the fact that I can't claim with absolute certainty that the authors are not standing up straight, I assign equal probabilities to the hoax hypothesis and to the undiscovered creature hypothesis. There are two more elements to evaluate here. The first one is the side tunnel size and length of the visible portion. The second one is the subject's speed. I assumed a height of 6 feet from the main tunnel's ground to its ceiling. Luckily, we have a frame of reference in this particular shot, which is one of the author's hat. If the guy's head is brushing against the main tunnel ceiling, represented by this blue line, the yellow double-headed arrow represents the ceiling's height, therefore 6 feet. Even by accounting for the fact that the side tunnel seems smaller due to perspective, I really don't see its diameter being larger than 2.5 feet, or 76 centimeters. As for the side tunnel's visible portion, I've drawn a trapezoid to represent its length, and I overexpose the image, and especially the shadows, on the side. I don't see any visual clue of other tunnel openings on the sides. Therefore, we can confidently say that the subject covered the entire distance of the visible portion of this small tunnel. It's impossible to determine the exact length of this section, but I can tell you two things. The first one is that there is no discernible cut in the footage, which could have been used to hide the real chain of events. The second one is that the exact amount of time from this photogram, where the subject is out of view for the first time, to this one where the authors illuminate the side tunnel and the subject is nowhere in sight, is 6 seconds and 13 Hz, for a total of 6,217 milliseconds. That is a very short time to crawl through a 2.5 feet wide tunnel. The only way that would be possible is if the subject were a tiny person, perhaps a child or an adult affected by dwarfism, and extremely agile and trained for this type of movement. I hope I won't offend anyone by saying this, and I apologize if I do, but from a purely analytical standpoint, dwarfism is typically characterized by altered proportions of the limbs due to inhibition of bone development, and this is not consistent with the subject's body frame. Therefore, all we're left with is the possibility of this being a physically trained child. Another aspect to consider is that no one can crawl on rock without hurting their knees, so the costume should have been equipped with some kind of padding protecting those junctures. Before the closing arguments, I would like you to ask yourself the following question and seriously ponder the implications of the answer. What is the probability of someone dragging a child into a cave system, dress him up with a custom-made, knee-padded, white monkey suit, and instruct them to crawl at almost impossible speed inside a pitch-black, narrow tunnel to film a hoax? So far, We couldn't single out any element supporting the hoax hypothesis, except the lack of information on this clip, and perhaps that the alternative is too outlandish. On the other hand, we have seen that the author's behavior is realistic. The setting is clearly a real underground cave system. The subject's estimated height is too short for an adult person. Its frame is that of a humanoid with proportioned limbs, and that it crawls inside a very narrow tunnel at a very high speed, incompatible with a bulky monkey costume with heavy padding for the knees. Thereby, in my final assessment, I attribute a 25% probability to the hoax hypothesis and 75% probability to the undiscovered creature hypothesis. In light of these findings, I consider the Project Riese tunnel creature footage highly plausible evidence of an undiscovered underground dwelling humanoid species. I am well aware that the idea of underground anthropoids is too wild for many to entertain, let alone accept. This is where my method differs. All I do is observe. I might be wrong in my conclusions, but my logic must follow the results of observation, wherever those might take it. I looked into Polish folklore and legends for any mythical creature resembling what's on display in the footage under scrutiny, but I couldn't find anything. If we are to entertain the idea that this is indeed an undiscovered creature with some degree of human features, there are only two possibilities, I think. Either it's something left over from genetic experiments and tinkering conducted by the Nazis inside the Project Riese tunnel system, or there is something more substantial to the idea of cave gnomes and little people than just human imagination. Almost any culture around the world has legends and stories about creatures living below ground and doing its best to stay hidden from us. Anyone who listens to paranormal and cryptozoology-themed podcasts knows that, although less frequent than Bigfoot or UFOs, there are quite a few interviewees reporting encounters with small humanoids in geographical areas including but not limited to North America and South America, and many of these encounters point to these creatures having their preferred habitat underground. I would love to hear your opinions on this analysis and the idea of little people in the comments. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, it would really help Strange Spotting grow if you could push the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.